Hello and welcome. Now, something I've been working on is increasing my collection of accessories, and I am really trying to increase my collection of like more spooky type accessories. And one thing that I've been looking for in particular is a corset. Now, my problem is a lot of corsets are really cheap, but I don't mean in price. Even some of the expensive ones, like they just, I don't know, they don't look good to me. And by the time they start looking like something that I would actually want quality wise, they are very much outside of my budget. Completely understandable. The better the quality, the more it's going to cost. That being said, since I know how to sew and I've made some corsets for like cosplay, I thought maybe I would try to kind of up the quality a bit and make one just for like styling. So I have a pattern. Now, initially I was going to do like a custom made pattern, but I thought I would make this like a little bit easier for if anyone else wanted to try this out. And I am going to use this. Let's see if I can get my camera to focus on it. This is the pattern, so that you can see the number. I am going to be making A, and I'm actually going to pull out the paper because it's a little easier to actually see what it looks like. So A has, it's got a lot going on, and I'm actually going to simplify it quite a bit. I am going to eliminate these side tie-ups. I am also going to swap out the zipper for a button front, which is going to be tricky because I actually intend to make this a reversible corset. I have an idea. We'll see if it works. And if not, then I will just pick a side to be the outer side and we'll go from there. But yes, so instead of a double tie, I'm just going to sew these seams together. I also want to make the top a little bit more prominent. We'll see how well that works. And then in the back, that's where they have like some hooking to make it easier to get in and out without having to completely unlace it. That's where I'm going to put my laces. So buttons in the front for getting in and out, and then the laces in the back. And I am actually going to do tab laces. I will show you what I'm talking about in a moment. But yeah, so this is the pattern I am working with. Unfortunately, it's not cut out, so I am going to have to do that. And most of the times I like to cut out all the pieces so it's just over and done. But there are a heck ton of pieces in this pattern. So we'll see what my patience level is for that. Let's talk about fabric. I've already picked out some. I'm hoping it's enough considering I am doing this garment here. If not, maybe I can supplement it and just use this in the front. But I had this leftover skull fabric from a skirt I made ages ago, and I think it would be really pretty to do one side in this, and then on the other side I have from my mother. She had a bunch left over from something she did. Oh, I think she made stockings or something. Anyways, I have this silk dupioni. It is a really nice red color, and it's almost got like a black shift look to it, as you can see. And so I think one side and the other would be really pretty this way. This is also a really nice, like, sturdy fabric, so I think it'll be good for corsetry. And what I might do to just kind of increase the structure of it is I have some heavy-duty interfacing, like the heat bond stuff. And so what I can do is attach it to this side just to beef it up a little. It's not actually, like, too thin of a material. This is a pretty decent cotton, but that way it just kind of helps give it more structure. Now, that's the primary materials. Obviously, we'll have to pick out some notions and stuff. And then there's the boning. Let me grab what I'm going to be using. I don't have, like, actual boning, but what I do have is heavy-duty zip ties. This is, like, an old school cosplay hack. Instead of buying boning, you just use zip ties. I've never used it with this thick a zip tie, but I think this is really going to give it that structure to keep it from like rolling and stuff that I want. I'm just gonna cut them to size and put them in the channels as we sew them. Yeah, I think this will work pretty well. They're a little thick, but I don't think it's too bad. As long as I round off the edges, it should be just fine. So those are our materials. I'm going to skip past me cutting out the pattern because that's going to just probably take me a little bit. And I'm gonna come out when we have our pieces ready to go. Okay, so now I have my 5 pattern pieces, which we will need to cut. Oh, I need 4 interfacing for this one. I'm probably just gonna do 1, well 2, because I need both sides. But pretty much I'm gonna need 2 of each for both the lining side, both my inside and my outside fabrics. So that, and I'll need the interfacing, and I think I'm gonna do it for, I'm honestly probably gonna do it for each piece. We'll see. Maybe I'll just do it for the pieces it actually tells me to do. But yes, I did cut out every piece. They're all folded back up and put back in here. I just grouped everything by size and particular corset. So it's nice and neat. So if I want to go dig out anything else, I can easily get it. I'm actually a little bit of a neat freak when it comes to my patterns. I like them folded and put back in a very specific way. Numerical order. It's all folded in numerical order, or if it's something like this where everything can be grouped into one garment item, I fold them all together and put them in like that. Yeah, so I guess we're ready to cut out our materials, so let's get started on that. Okay, so I actually have wiggle room to play with. I wasn't sure how much I would have, and I'm gonna do something that I've never done before, but I think it'll be really good for this particular project. It is going to be some extra steps of cutting, but what I'm going to do, since I have the space, as long as I stay on the half for each set, I'm going to unfold this so that I can place it for the best skulls on the fabric, so that I'm not ending up with like dead space and then like the skulls are all in the seams. So I'm gonna work on placing the first half, cut it out, and then do the same thing on the other half. So I'm kind of excited that I have enough wiggle room to actually do that. It's not so squeezed in that it has to be just wherever it happens to land. So let's do that. Okay, I think I've got it where I like it now. So I'm gonna pin these down, cut them out, and do the same process on this other side here. Okay, real quick, I just wanted to mention that when you do this technique and cut out your second set of pieces, to make sure you flip them face down so that you have mirrored pieces. I almost didn't think about that. Luckily, I remembered before it was too late, so we're good to go. And there is the first set. So I'm going to go ahead and snip these out and then move on to the red fabric. All right, so now we have all of our fabric cut out. Here's the red. I haven't unpinned it from the pattern yet, but I've also got the interfacing cut out, and I've already flipped these over so that is on the wrong side of the fabric. So now I just need to get out my iron and ironing board and adhere them all together. I am verging greatly from the actual instructions on the pattern. it actually only calls for the interfacing on these front panels. I want the stiffness throughout the entire thing. And additionally, it only actually calls for lining on the front view panels as well. But because I am trying to make a reversible corset, once again, I have cut out the fabric for all the pieces in both fabrics. So the next step after getting this all ironed together is going to be to sew all the pieces together and check the fit before I sew together the other set of pieces. So I'll probably do a basting stitch on these, and then if I need to make major alterations, I can just easily undo those stitches and use this as my new pattern. But I'm hoping that it's just gonna work, so I don't have to do alterations, because it's annoying. It just is, having to stitch rip everything to make sure it fits. Yeah, so that is the next set of steps that we're going to be going from, and then we'll talk about the assembly of the front, the back, and the boning after that. Alright, so here is a bit of a preview of what we've got. This is still just pinned together. I just held it up to myself, and I think it should be okay, especially since it's a corset, so that just means I can cinch it even tighter if it's a little on the smaller side. I'm going to do, I think it's a 5/8 seam allowance. I am going to follow that part of the direction just because that means that the pieces are going to line up the way they're meant to. And since that's a pretty straightforward process, I'm just going to go ahead and take care of that. It's just straight stitching all of the seams together, so I think that the time would be better spent focusing on like the assembly and the more difficult bits and the things that I am changing from the pattern itself. Because obviously I'm doing it very differently than the instructions. So I want to have more time to talk about those things and then not have a super long video. I am trying to get my Psychopomp creation videos down to a little bit more manageable length. So I will come back once all these panels are put together and we will move on to the next phase of making our corset. Alright, let me catch you up. So we have stitched together our pieces. As I said, it was just a basic straight stitch, but then I also pressed the seams. This is actually going to be pretty important. One, it makes the garment look so nice and crisp. But two, this is also going to give us a nice smooth surface to put the boning in. This is pretty much going to be the sleeve that we're using. So this is the skull side. Now the red fabric, not quite as heavy duty as I initially perceived it to be. I think it's because it was, when I was handling it, I didn't realize that it was 2 layers I was feeling, not 1. Not a problem. It's still gonna do fine once it's all stitched together. But it is wanting to be a little frayed. Now I didn't want to use servitor on the edges just to make sure that I didn't distort anything. So my solution was I took more of that iron-on interfacing, and after I pressed those seams open, I just took a strip wide enough to cover it and I went right over. So once again, this is going to provide a nice basis for the casing, because the next step is going to be stitching the sides together and creating those little sleeves for it to slide into. Now, normally I would put like the right sides together, stitch along the edge and reverse it. I'm going to try a different method. I did quite a bit of reading on different ways to make corsetry, and I think what I'm going to do is put the right sides together and really make sure that these seams are lined up well. And I did try to kind of give it a good look over before I pressed them in place, just to make sure that they were sitting right on top of each other. That way the stitching that we're going to do on either side is going to be nice and even and provide the casing that we need. So we are going to stitch down along all of these seams. I'm not going to do any of the edges yet. I want to make sure everything is lined up in the center. And then we're going to do a like a binding on the edges to cover up everything raw. I probably will serge it before I do that once all the little the boning is in place. But that's where we're at right now. Is it's time for me to fussily line everything up and then do the stitching along the sides. So let's get to it. Alright, so we now have all of our little double lines sewed to make our pockets for our boning. Now, if you're doing a single-sided corset, just like regular, you don't have to worry about how the backside turns out if it's not quite aligned, because it's going to be on the inside. No one's going to see it. No big deal. Now, I had a line, and of course it's the one right on the front, and I stitch strip it, tried it again, came out pretty much the same way. I'm not quite sure what happened there, but it is what it is. There's two options since I'm doing double-sided. Reversible, however you want to put it. I can either fuss with it until it's right, or I can just cover up my mistakes. Now, I had already bought this flexi lace hem tape to use as an embellishment on the red side. I thought it would be a nice contrast and a nice detail. On the side that's messed up, I'm just going to do the same thing now. I happen to have in my stash of random odds and ends some of that same stuff in red. So I'm just going to slap it right on top. And it actually is like the exact width of my seams pretty much. I'm just gonna slap it right on top, cover it up. No big deal, no one's gonna know. Well, you know, because you're watching this. But yeah, you're not gonna be able to see it. So instead of worrying about fussing with it over and over again, I'm just gonna do that. Easy. So now the next step is, I thought it was going to be to add the boning, but I think I'm actually going to put some focus on how I'm going to do the fastenings. Like I said, I do plan on doing buttoning in the front, and I think I'm going to add some like a kind of like a panel like I did with my Halloween shirt. That way I can just stitch it to it. If I mess it up, it's not a big deal, because if I mess up buttonholes, well, I guess it doesn't matter until I cut them open, but if it doesn't look right, I don't want to have to stitch rip it from my actual garment. So I'm going to make some separate pieces to just sandwich over, or maybe I'll put it in between. I haven't quite decided yet. Yeah, I haven't quite decided yet. But I'm going to make just separate tabs to put the buttoning down the front, and I need to make some tabs to go in the back. And I can actually show you exactly what I'm talking about. Alright, so I recently made this waist cincher to just kind of test this technique out. And instead of doing like grommets or rivets or anything like that, because they're kind of a pain in the butt to install, I decided to put some little tabs that I could just feed the lacing through. And I really like how it turned out. So I think I'm going to use the same method on this corset here to do the lacing with. And then I don't have to worry about installing grommets to do the lacing. Because like I said, I actually kind of hate doing it. It's not been an enjoyable process in any of the things I've tried doing it in. And you have to really make sure that's like really well installed in anything stretchy. Mind you, this isn't stretchy, but I was putting it in stretch fabric and it was just a nightmare because it was just like popping out of the holes. Anyways, I'm just going to avoid doing all of that and sew some tabs. So I think I'm gonna just go ahead and whip those up real quick, and then we're gonna figure out the front part. Okay, so it's been a couple weeks since I touched this project. I needed to step away and kind of think about the front enclosure some more. I'm not doing buttons, we're doing hook and eyes. But first, like I said, I do want to go ahead and get the back loops done. I have a long piece of fabric that we're going to make into a very long tube, and this is going to get then cut down into our loop pieces. The only thing I've done off camera is I went ahead and serged the edges just because the silk was fraying really bad. That one was probably actually the fabric that needed to have the binding on it, but it is what it is at this point. Like I said, it is serged now, so we don't have to worry about it just absolutely shredding. So it is ready to have the bindings put on either side, and then we will also be putting in the boning. But like I said, loops first, so let's get on to that. So now that the ties are ready, I want to prepare kind of an encasement for them to go in. Rather than stitching them directly to the edge of the corset, I'm going to kind of sandwich the edge into this, and that way I can do a bunch of reinforced stitching here without it showing on the final garment. And then what will happen is, since I have this open, I can place this inside, bring that over it, and then this can kind of fold over just to make a nice looking edge. It'll probably be folded. It's gonna be a lot of layers, so hopefully my machine can handle it, but that'll look something like that, and then the ties will all be coming out of here. And that'll just give me a nice clean look, but it'll make sure that each individual loop has the reinforcement it needs without it showing. Now this fabric is a little on the thin side, so I am going to put just some like interface on it, just to give it that extra strength for when the ties are actually pulled, and that way I don't have to worry about the fabric becoming weakened over time. So I'm going to go ahead and prep both of the sides, get all of the little folds ironed in, and stitch in the tabs. Alright, so I ended up settling on doing 6 across. I did leave a little space at either end just so that I have it accounting for the fact that this is longer than the actual side of the corset. You can see I've got the double fold already pressed in, so I'll just flip that up and then do probably maybe even 2 sets of zigzag stitch, because the ends actually go all the way down to here, and that way I'll know they're super secure. Alright, so here it is with the double line of zigzag stitching. So you can see now it'll insert into the corset, and then the only stitching you're going to see is the finishing edging, and then I'll probably do a line further in. But I think that'll look okay. It'll just look like finishing seams rather than securing stitches. So yeah, I'm going to do that to that one, and then I'm going to probably go ahead and pop them in, and then we will move on to the front. Let's take a look at what I'm doing for the front now. So a pretty similar process as the back. I'm going to take a strip of fabric, and then I'm going to reinforce it, essentially making like a really thick like bias tape just to bind the outside. But the important part of this is I'm going to be sewing hooks to this, and I'm going to put them obviously right up on the edge, and then you'll have it hook in from the other side. Make sure that overlaps just enough to cover. But I'm going to do these hooks before I attach it to the bodice, because I can then just stitch it to the one side so that the stitching doesn't go through and then show on the other side, since it is intended to be reversible. I'm planning on doing 6 along here. Hopefully that's enough, because I just bought a pack of 6. So I guess what I'm probably going to do now is break out needle and thread and get those all stitched in place, including the loop that goes on the other side. And then very carefully stitch it to the corset. Hopefully I can get a double stitch in even once those are in place. I don't have a lot of room to work with, but I think I'll be able to get it stitched on securely enough that I don't have to worry about anything popping or anything like that once it's tightened. So we're getting close to being able to do finishing touches once the logistics part of it is done. So I'm kind of excited because this project has been pretty time consuming actually, but I really, like I said, I wanted to make a decent quality garment. Obviously it's not going to have like real boning because I'm not going to go out and buy some, but I think ignoring that, it'll look pretty legit once we're done. So I'm at a point where I'm really getting excited now. For a while it was dragging, but I'm excited again. So let's finish these logistics so that we can make it look cute. All right, we have fastenings installed and I am super happy that that's done with, especially this side. It's not perfect. I might end up covering this with some lace as well, but sewing along here on the bottom side was nerve-wracking because I had to get like right up on those little metal pieces and I was really worried about breaking my needle. Anyways, that is done. So now what I'm going to do is I have these giant heavy-duty zip ties and I am just going to measure them against each section and cut them. And more importantly, most importantly, is you want to remember to round the edge. So let me get scissors that are appropriate because all I have is my fabric scissors, and fabric scissors are only for fabric. All right, so what you want to just do, I'm gonna just cut it down, and then you have like little corners. So you just want to round it off, and that way you don't have those corners stabbing up through the top of the corset or down through the bottom, because they can tear through. So once you do this, you're usually good to go. So yes, I'm going to cut all these out, and then we're getting to the finishing process. So I think I'm actually going to leave you here because I have a feeling that I may end up having to hand stitch the trim on, which means lots of movies while I finish this up. So I will see you for the unveiling. So that was making a reversible corset, and I'm actually pretty happy with how it came out. This one definitely stretched my sewing skills to the max and made me really think about how the construction works so that things look decent on both sides. Detailing's not perfect. Definitely practices make perfect with that sort of thing, and I need a lot more practice when it comes to like stitching on lace and stuff. I think this is actually the first time I've really done that, But yeah, still, I am overall quite happy. The only thing I might change, you can't see it quite as much on this side, but on the other outfit when it's like reversed, the clasps, the hooks kind of show when it stretches. And I think if I just screwed them away from the edge a little bit, that might fix it, but I'm not super worried about it. I mean, there's a lot of corsets where you can like see the buckling and everything. But other than that, I ain't mad with how this turned out at all. I actually wore the other outfit out and about while we did errands to like the library and Home Depot and some other random places, but I felt cute and it was actually pretty comfortable. It could probably even get cinched in a little bit to really get that sucked in look, but I like to be able to breathe, and I haven't worn a corset in a minute, so I took it pretty easy. It is a little difficult to tighten on my own. I did end up getting my husband to get it kind of pulled in a little bit better because I just don't have the reach that I used to. I need to start doing yoga and get my flexibility back, but I'll get there eventually. But yeah, thank you so much for watching me go through this process. Up next is going to be the bedroom makeover. I'm really excited. Expect to see a whole bunch of videos pertaining to that. There's no way to squeeze everything I want to do into one video. And if I did, it would be hella long. So yeah, we'll break it up into separate projects and then like the overall putting it together, I think. Still kind of outlining how I'm going to do that. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope this video helped you to relax in peace, and I will see you in the next one.